Hastings area to have so many places of interest. So we have the floodplain forest and trees like the cottonwood that dominate it, cottonwood and silver maple. We are lucky to have the white pine forest at Pine Bend. We're lucky to have the black ash seepage swamp at Pine Bend. We are lucky to have the alder thicket at Lebanon Hills Regional Park in Eagan. Here we are at the Tamarack Nature Preserve in Woodbury, and we should probably look at its namesake tree, that tamarack. So they have this fantastic boardwalk that goes right through the preserve, and here there's a tamarack right on the edge. So I've mentioned this before at the Alder Thicket in Lebanon Hills, but here it is again. Here's that tamarack. So what again is unique about it? Well, it's a deciduous conifer. So that means that it loses its leaves every fall. Actually, they're beautiful. They're a kind of a golden color when they are ready to fall, and they often signal the start of the grouse hunting season. So there's a neat kind of timing there between the golden period of coloration of those needles and grouse hunting. So they lose those needles. They are deciduous, but also they have cones, so they're conifers. Such a beautiful tree. You know, the other thing is that you can tell that they have all these little nubbins that come off the edge of the branches, and each of those little nubbins, so to say, holds quite a number of needles, somewhere like a dozen or even more. So they're very different than, let's say, the white pine that only has 5 needles in a bunch. These have 12, 13, 14 needles that come off at every bunch. So that's the tamarack, namesake for Tamarack Nature Preserve. Now, as I walk down the beautiful boardwalk here we have a willow. There are lots of different willows, black willow, and this one is pussy willow, and the name here is Salix discolor. It's got these fantastic catkins that have come out in those fuzzy little structures that you and I probably know as a pussy willow. Oh, and right here, these beautiful red shrubs, these are red osier dogwood, one of those few trees in Minnesota that actually has opposite branching. So those are typical trees, red osier dogwood, pussy willows, and tamarack that you can find here at Tamarack Nature Preserve. Now, as I walk down the boardwalk, you can see that a lot of these plants that are still dormant are fairly dominant here, and these are cattails. So, why are they called cattails? Well, they have these big flowering structures at the top, hence their name, cattails. There are actually 3 species that you might find here at Tamarack Nature Preserve. There is a wide-leaf cattail, that's Typha latifolia, and then there are 2 that are problematic because they're rather invasive. There's narrow-leaf cattail, Typha angustifolia, and then there's a hybrid cattail, Typha glauca. Now, what are these? Well, you can tell that the leaves are really quite narrow. These are narrow leaf Typha angustifolia. Another way that you can really tell is because there is a bit of a gap between the flower on the top and the spot where the stem starts. So that gap is typical to both Typha glauca, the hybrid, and Typha angustifolia, their narrow-leafed cattail. So 3 different species, 1 genus, Typha of cattail at Tamarack Nature Preserve. Now I'm going to walk my way back down the boardwalk here, and I'm going to show you a whole series of plants that are just not up yet. It's still early, The system is still sleeping, so I'm going to show you these various plants as they might be if you came back here in June or maybe in July. So here we go, walking down the beautiful boardwalk here. I've got all my plants nicely laid out for you, so I can just stop here and summarize each. So what have we got? Alright, first one. Love this plant. It's kind of a prehistoric plant. It's called horsetail or equisetum. So you can hear the equa prefix in it. That's a reference to horse, equisetum. This is pretty much a prehistoric plant. The plant that you're seeing today is pretty unchanged from way back 300 million years ago. Some people call them scouring rush because you can use their silica content to scour the bottom of your pots and pans from a camping trip. So that's horsetail or equisetum. Tamarack Nature Preserve is also known for its sedges, and here we've got a sedge that we didn't see at the Elder Thicket nor at the floodplain forest. This one's called bottlebrush sedge. So again, that easy, rather generalistic mnemonic of sedges have edges applies here. And look at that female set of structures again, the perigynia. Very unique, and you can see why they call it bottlebrush sedge. It rather looks like a bottle brush that you might use to clean up, let's say, a test tube at school. Alright, our next plant here is one that we might have seen at the Elder Thicket in Lebanon Hills. It's the marsh marigold. Again, beautiful yellow flowers, and it's got that big, round, rather heart-shaped leaf to it. Marsh marigold. Beautiful. Now, how about this one? This is fantastic. Love this. Bog arum. So if you look at the sphagnum moss that is in the background, you can get a kind of a size scale. This is just a young plant, but it's got these beautifully shaped leaves and that wonderful white that comes behind the flower head. So that's called bog arum. Gorgeous plant that you can see here at the Nature Preserve. Here's another beauty. This is called turtle head. So it's got this kind of spike of white flowers that are really tightly, really densely arranged, and it's got leaves that are pretty narrow and serrated on the edge. That's called turtle head. This is another favorite of mine. This is called Mad Dog Skullcap. Love that name. Sounds like the name of a pop rock band or something. Mad Dog Skullcap. But look at the flowers. Aren't they pretty? And they've got that particular structure, kind of narrower on the top and coming out into sort of a tongue on the bottom. It's called Mad Dog Skullcap. Now here's a repeat. Jewelweed. We've seen this beautiful plant at places like the floodplain forest in Hastings. You could see it quite easily at the Elder Thicket at Lebanon Hills Regional Park. And now here again you could see it at Tamarack Nature Preserve. This one I love too, marsh cinquefoil, or I guess you could say marsh cinquefoil. It's a reference to five, cinq, or in French, cinq. So they often have leaves that come off in clusters of 5. And notice the edge on it, how it's very, very highly serrated. Marsh cinquefoil, or some people say cinquefoil. Love that. Oh, now here's a repeat. Sensitive fern. We've seen this. This was at the floodplain forest. This was at the Elder Thicket in Lebanon Hills. It's got that really unique fern structure. You wouldn't see this with any other fern. And I've actually pointed out the separate spore frond because that's still up and about, even though it's such an early spring. Now here's another fern, but we have not seen this one yet, the cinnamon fern. So I've mentioned sensitive fern, Anoclea. I've mentioned marsh fern, Philipterus, that you might find at the elder thicket. I've mentioned ostrich fern that you might find as well, but not this one yet. This is new, cinnamon fern. Now you notice it's got these beautiful separate spore fronds. They have that cinnamon color, hence the name, cinnamon fern. Cinnamon fern. Now, how about this plant? Yeah, I really like this as well. Beggar's tick, or devil's beggar ticks in this case, a particular species. It's got beautiful yellow flowers. It's got very opposite leaves that are highly serrated. And if you look at the inset, these two pictures are its seeds. They're magnified here, but they're great pictures of the seeds. And you can see how they're adapted to stick. So if you take your Labrador retriever hunting, the poor guy might come back all full of devil's beggar ticks, which stick to his fur. Now the interesting thing to a biology nerd is that every species of beggar ticks has a seed that's unique. So you can actually identify the particular species of beggar ticks by its seed. Very interesting. Here's my last one. Beautiful flower, really cool. And you can see this a little later.